Have you ever looked at your team and wondered, why do they seem stuck? Why does every task feel like pulling teeth? Why are the same mistakes happening over and over, even though I've given clear instructions? Okay. First, we want to name the struggle. Okay. Your team is missing deadlines, right? So that's not because they don't care, but because they seem paralyzed, right? Communication feels like a game of telephone. Your messages are getting lost, misunderstood, or ignored. Motivation feels inconsistent. Some days they're on fire, and other days your team is just completely checked out. Or you're exhausted from micromanaging, yet nothing seems to improve no matter how much you micromanage and really pour yourself into every single person's activities, right? So here's the hidden truth. What most leadership training won't tell you is that your team isn't lazy, they're drowning. Okay. And the reason has everything to do with their nervous system. Okay. So that's why the team gets stuck. When your team's nervous system is dysregulated, their brain literally can't process or access higher level thinking. Okay. That's the executive functioning, though that's the brain's engine. So here's what happens: the survival brain takes over. Okay. The amygdala, which is your threat detector, I like to call it your little baby chihuahua. Okay. Your amygdala hijacks the prefrontal cortex. Okay. The executive functioning center. Okay. So briefly, amygdala, baby chihuahua, threat detector. Um, Hello, this isn't safe, right? Trying to protect you, sometimes to your detriment. This hijacks the prefrontal cortex, executive functioning, the center where your brain's engine is, right? Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses start to dominate when this happens. Okay. Your creativity, your problem solving, and collaboration all start to shut down. So then sometimes dysregulation might look like fight, right? So that's defensiveness, blame shifting, conflict. It could look like a threat response, flight. Flight turns into avoidance, procrastination, ghosting on tasks, right? Freeze, which is like shut down, right? Paralysis, indecision, analysis paralysis. I can't even think about what's in front of me or analyze it. And I feel stuck, right? And then again, that leads to indecision or fawn. Okay. So there's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fawn is, it looks like people pleasing, over promising, burnout, um, high expectations and overcommitting themselves to something in efforts to please you or look a certain way, right? To placate to the team leader or the team manager. Okay. So how does the executive functioning get impacted, right? When the nervous system is in survival mode, these are the critical skills that just they collapse. Your working memory, okay? You start forgetting instructions, losing track of priorities. Your cognitive flexibility. Now you're struggling to adapt. You have really rigid thinking. If things change last minute, it feels like, oh my goodness, like the rug's just been pulled from under me. Impulse control. So that might look like reactive communication, right? Instead of just processing, listening, you're now reacting, right? Whether it's in defense or to over explain or whatever it may be, right? Emotional outbursts, things like that. Task initiation starts to collapse. So when your task initiation is impacted, you start to procrastinate. It feels like you have this deep inability to start, right? Planning and organizing. Our skills to plan and organize turn into chaos, missed deadlines, and things like that. So when the nervous system is in survival mode, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, these are the skills that start to collapse. There are other skills that collapse as well, like metacognition, being able to review, reflect, think about what you're thinking about, you know. Um, but what happens is most leaders respond to these symptoms by adding more pressure, which only increases the dysregulation. Or they try to help out by over explaining, which ends up overwhelming the already taxed brain, right? I'm already feeling like my brain's engine is on overload, overdrive, right? So over explaining something, it just overwhelms me even more, right? Micromanaging, right? Leaders tend to respond to these symptoms by ending up micromanaging, which signals distrust and it triggers more survival responses. Okay, so then the result is just this vicious cycle where the team sinks deeper and deeper into stagnation. Okay, so we want to try to avoid that when we're working with our team. When you understand the nervous system, okay, you become a regulation resource for your team. Okay, you want to become a regulation resource for your team. When this happens, you create conditions for their brains to access their optimal executive functioning, their creativity, and their collaboration. Okay, so there's three pillars of the nervous system. Informed leadership, and number one is expectation. Okay, the brain loves predictability, it loves consistency, right? So the problem is when we're unclear or constantly shifting expectations, that triggers the brain's threat response. Okay, so the solution to that is to set clear, consistent expectations. Again, the brain loves predictability. Communicate the why behind the tasks. When we get a sense of meaning as to why we're doing something, it does reduce the threat level. You may feel like I don't need to explain why, but the truth is, if you want your team to function at an optimal level, you do want to explain and communicate the why because meaning reduces threat. And normalize mistakes as a part of learning. When the team feels safe, they're more likely to feel regulated. Okay. So, an example of all this, instead of saying, this needs to be done ASAP, try saying, I need this by Friday at 3 p.m. because it feeds into our client meeting for Monday. If you hit a roadblock, let me know by Wednesday so we can adjust. Could you feel the difference in that? Number two, okay, when it comes to the pillars of nervous system informed leadership. Number two is clarity. Simplify to amplify. Okay, so the problem here is that overwhelm shuts down the prefrontal cortex that we were talking about, right? Too many priorities pretty much equals no priorities. Okay, once you have more than one to two priorities, you no longer have any. You just have a list, right? So the solution is to break tasks down into bite-sized steps. So this reduces the cognitive overload. Okay, my brain is overheating. This reduces that and gives it some cool. Okay, you want to prioritize tasks and expectations ruthlessly. Okay, one to three priorities max. Okay, the everything's might feel urgent, but it's not. Okay, prioritize the one to three top priorities. I suggest one to two, but three is fine, especially for a high functioning team. But try this month, try this. Okay, example, instead of saying, we need to improve customer satisfaction, streamline operations, and launch the new product this quarter, try saying this. This month, our one focus is customer satisfaction. Here are the three actions we are taking. Okay, so I hope that was clear. I hope I didn't muck that up too much. I'll go ahead and put that example in the chat for you all as well. I'm going to try to get some visuals in our upcoming appointments. Hopefully, it'll be easier to follow along in case I make, simple mistakes like that. But now we're going to go ahead and move on to number three. Okay, so of the three pillars of nervous system informed leadership, the third one is a skill, closing the gap with compassion. Okay, so the problem here is that expecting performance without equipping people creates frustration and shame. And both of these dysregulate the nervous system. That's literally what we're trying to avoid. So the solution to that is assess skill gaps honestly without judgment. Okay. So you can identify gaps without judging yourself. It's really just a self assessment. It's just getting a vantage point of the situation, some insight so that we can pivot and do better. It's not a bad thing. Don't think of judgment and criticism. Think of skill building, addressing gaps, becoming better, right? Um, the solution also includes providing training, resources, or mentorship to build capacity. We want to allow our team to be able to hold more, right? And also celebrate small wins, okay? That little dopamine that gets released when we celebrate milestones and small wins, it equals motivation and more regulation. Okay, so an example, instead of saying, why can't you just figure this out? Try saying, I see this is challenging. Let's walk through it together, and I'll share a resource that helped me. Okay. So I want you to practice shifting your in the workplace, reframing the way that you're addressing certain challenges, whether it be a skill gap that you need to close, something that you over explained and you need to simplify, or just being more predictable and consistent. For your team so that they can really follow through on those expectations. Okay. So here's some practical strategies that you guys can use. So, some daily practices to regulate your team's nervous system. In the morning, you can start your meetings with grounding and regulation. So, begin with like a 60-second breathing exercise or a quick check in, right? Just a temperature check on everybody. Ask, what's one thing you're carrying into this meeting? Okay, that allows your team to acknowledge their emotional state and also share it with you, which gives you some insight and information, right? And set a clear agenda. Predictability calms the nervous system. I cannot state that enough. Okay. So that's morning, right? Midday, I want you guys to recalibrate with your team. So this can prevent afternoon crashes. So in the middle of your day, try to encourage micro breaks, 5 minutes every 90 minutes or so. Um, Model boundary setting. Okay. So for an example, I'm stepping away for 10 minutes to reset. That's okay, especially if it's an investment into the level of productivity that they will engage in when they return. Okay. So breaks aren't bad. They're not lazy. They're not avoidance all the time, right? Sometimes people genuinely need to step away, reset so that they can come back better and stronger and with a more clear mind. So don't punish people for needing a break or communicating that they need that break. Okay. So you want to model that boundary setting and also leave a space for open communication. And then lastly, in the midday, you can also encourage your team to do some bilateral stimulation. So that's like walking, tapping, stretching, right? To reset your nervous system. Okay. Get physical in the office. Okay. We're behind computers all day, calling people, running numbers, talking to people, networking, all these things. But sometimes we really do just need that stimulation of walking, stretching, tapping, humming, things like that to reset our actual biological nervous system. And again, when we do that, we can show up so much better. It's an investment. It is an investment. Okay. And then in the evening, right, you want to end the day with clarity. Okay. Close any open loops on open tasks because this will reduce rumination, right? We don't want people leaving stressed and thinking about and, overthinking what they missed. So just close those loops. Even if it's something that you didn't complete, close it by saying, okay, we're clocking out now, take this off the agenda until tomorrow at 10 a.m., right? It will come right back around, but we do want to reduce the level of rumination and people being stressed outside of work. When we clock out, we need to go rest and reset. We shouldn't be taking our work home with us. It may seem like cool that, oh, they're still working after the hours, off the clock and things like that. But the truth is, when we rest and reset, then we can come into our next workday so much more refreshed with clear mind and optimal executive functioning. Okay. So at the end of the day, you also want to celebrate any progress, even if it's small, because this activates the reward pathways. Okay. And it makes me want to show up even better. Hey, right? And also, you want to preview tomorrow. What did I say earlier? Predictability equals safety. Okay. So preview the next day at the end of the day. Okay. So here's some communication strategies that we can use for regulation. I'm kind of zooming through this. Do we have any questions? Let's see. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to keep it going. So, some communication strategies for regulation. Use and instead of but. Okay, so here's what I mean. I see you're working hard and I need you to prioritize this task. That validates effort, okay, while redirecting. It reduces defensiveness, okay? So use and instead of but. Name emotions without judgment. Okay. It sounds like this project is frustrating. Naming that emotion activates the prefrontal cortex and it calms the amygdala. It's like, oh, okay, that's what's happening. And you understand me and you're okay with it. This is safe. I can get out of this. Okay. Next, ask, don't assume. Okay. So, what's getting in the way of finishing this? When you ask questions like that, it invites collaboration instead of triggering shame or inadequacy, right? Um, so these are important because people won't always tell you that the way you come at them is affecting their nervous system. Sometimes people don't even know, to be honest. But it is important. I don't want you to feel like it's childish or elementary to be trying to tend to people's needs, I don't want you to think that this is tiptoeing around anything. You're supporting your team and helping your team gain more cognitive capacity to grow by showing up this way. You want to get that money? You want to hit those deadlines? You want to scale this business? You want to expand this team? You want more customer satisfaction, more productivity? Then take on these tips and get these skills because your team will feel better. Your team will feel more safe. Okay. And that's when the transformation happens. Okay. So, what ends up changing when leaders lead with regulation? Well, ultimately, you go from stagnation to blooming. Okay. Excuse me. So, you go from stagnation to blooming. Okay. So before you might have had a dysregulated team, people were missing deadlines, there's low morale, high turnover, constant firefighting, reactive communication. The leader feels exhausted, the team feels unsupported. Goodness gracious, right? But after you take on these skills and really start practicing what we're talking about, you can have a regulated team. That's going to be a team with improved focus, more creativity, right? They're going to want to take more initiative to be creative and have different ideas about things and collaboration. They're going to be proactive in their problem solving and their decision making. They're probably going to have more clear communication, and you're going to have more clear communication with them. The leaders will feel more organized and more energized, and the team is going to feel empowered. Okay. So, some real world wins that teams have shared is that teams report feeling seen and safe when these sort of things happen, when you lead with regulation, right? This is the foundation of trust. Your executive functioning improves, which means better planning, better follow through, adaptability, right? When there's changes, and productivity increases, not from pressure, but from alignment. Okay. And that's what we're here for. That's what we're trying to do. So I want you to think about your team right now. Where are they on the spectrum from stagnant to blooming? What's one small shift you can make this week to support their nervous system? Okay. So I want to give you guys some homework. Go ahead and grab a journal, pen, paper, put it on your laptop, type it out, whatever. If you have great memory, just listen up. Here's some homework. Okay. Number one, I want you to audit your expectations. Okay, leaders. Okay, high performers, audit your expectations. Are they clear? Are they consistent? And are they meaningful? Again, it's not for judgment or criticism, but it's for awareness so that you can improve the way you're showing up for your team and your team can overall improve. So, homework assignment number one, audit your expectations. Number two, simplify one priority. Okay, what can you remove or postpone in efforts to reduce overwhelm? And number three, close one skill gap. Okay, so what training could you provide to close a skill gap? What resources could you give your team? Or what conversation would help your team succeed? Okay, think about these things. If you're ready to go deeper to build team culture rooted in regulation, clarity, and joy, let's talk. I offer workshops, coaching, and custom trainings designed to help leaders like you create thriving, high performing teams. Okay. So if you go to my website or any of the links in our bio, book a free 20-minute consultation. You can DM me, you can send me an email, connect with me however you like. But you can book a free consultation to see if this is a good fit for you, or you can just straight up book us to come in and do a workshop, okay? But just in this journey, remember that this is an investment. And when you make one-time investments, they can have so much longevity and really promote the well-being of your team, your nervous system, your personal life, your quality of life for the long term. Okay. Leadership isn't about pushing harder. It's about creating the conditions for your team to bloom, to flourish. Okay. When you understand the nervous system, you unlock your team's potential and yours. So, thank you for being here. Now, go ahead and go lead with clarity, compassion, and courage. All right. See you guys in 2 weeks. And if you guys have any questions, I'll be hanging out for a few minutes. So if anyone wants to stick around, ask me questions, either put them in the chat or go ahead and just turn your mics on and let's hear from you guys. Everyone else, thank you for joining, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.